Good afternoon. Thanks God it's Monday. We have another week full of exciting trading activity. If you look at like graphs and stuff and equities related to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. So we have MicroStrategy Mondays here. This is the fourth one, starting out 4:30 p.m. PST. The next two Mondays will be a different time slot. I will say, so I was going to do November without alcohol, and then there was election night at my place. Legend here, Andy, was here and had brought the most delicious brisket, slow cooked 12 hours I ever had. Matteo from Orange Pill app and Paul, founder of LogicX app, Workout, they were also here. They brought some French champagne, and like at the end of the night, it's like, I guess we have something to celebrate. We now get freedom back. We can get free speech back and all those good things. So since November, no alcohol is already down the drain. I'm thinking to have one of these that also those good gentlemen brought. And there we go, off to our start. I have never owned any equity that went up 64% in a day. I do today. Saying that, I will say, like, stay away from leverage products. They'll get you wrecked. They easily can get you wrecked. But that was just like a tiny bit of MSTU that I bought for giggles. But here we are. One of my absolute favorite quants, of course, Quanterback, aka Punter Jeff, is here. Good to see you, Jeff. And how are you today?
Fantastic. On the road, traveling a little bit, but what a day! What a day! Totally epic. I mean, announcing the Bitcoin purchase, the stock performance, Bitcoin performance. I mean, just incredible, all-time highs, price discovery on both MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. I mean, I couldn't be happier. Amazing day.
It's exciting when you kind of chose to like go down not only the Bitcoin rabbit hole, but also the MicroStrategy rabbit hole, and end up with conviction taking a position that kind of gives you some exposure when this rocket ship just takes off. Also, my good friend Andy, a Bitcoin I know from LA, we've known each other for years. He, as I already hinted, does the most amazing barbecue. Andy also was one of the few people not that anyone cared, but one of the guys I named MVP of the year, Bitcoin of the year, alongside like Nayib Bukele and Saylor himself and Corey calling out the scams in 22, because Andy, from what I heard, and you can give the story, actually mentioned, like, after Saylor did the original purchase, almost 500 million plowed into Bitcoin, Andy, I think it might have been on a stream on Swan and Preston Pish, saying that he could also start selling bonds and buying more Bitcoin. But Andy, why don't you take it away, please?
Yeah, great to see you, Anders. Always a pleasure, buddy. Likewise, Jeff. Jeff, I enjoyed sitting on a panel with you at the Bitcoin is for Everyone conference in Portland, Oregon. Shout out to Eddie for I see him in the chat for co-organizing that, and highly recommend people check that out. They're doing it again next year as well. First of all, just a warning, after hanging out with Anders and all the dirty Bitcoiners last week, I'm a little under the weather. So just warning there. Also to all the veterans out there, thank you for your service. To all the MicroStrategy investors out there, congratulations on all your success. It's been a hell of a profitable ride. And third thing, or maybe fourth thing I'll say is I have owned MicroStrategy in the past, but as of this time, 4:40 p.m. On November 11th, I'm not currently a shareholder. So just FYI. I'm not done though. We'll get there.
You get it at the price you deserve, right?
That's right. So, in case people aren't aware, I recently released episode 21 of the Scarce Assets show, and my guest was Michael Saylor. I'm sure you guys have all already checked out that episode, but if you haven't, please do. And tomorrow I'm recording with Eric Weiss, who's credited with orange pilling Saylor himself. And now I'll give a little background, as Anders alluded to. It was summer of 2020 when I started posting on Twitter about Saylor's initial moves with his treasury in the summer, including the tender offer that he launched to give those current shareholders who thought they owned a business, a business intelligence software company, and didn't think they owned a Bitcoin company, gave them a chance to move on and sell their stock to the company. That's when he followed me on Twitter and told me at that time that I was the first person in the community to pick up on kind of the details on the moves on what they were doing. And yeah, I think it was, Anders, later in the year, I was doing an episode of Swan Signal with, I think it was probably the quarterly one with Preston Brady, of course, would have been hosting back then. And yeah, it occurred to me that MicroStrategy's balance sheet was a little underlevered and maybe it could support some more debt. And a couple months later, the first convertible bond deal came to market, and I guess the rest, you could say, is history. Although we may be early on this train, as I'm sure Jeff will point out. So that's the quick background, and I'll hand it off there.
And Jeff, if you have some, I'm sure you have some thoughts or comments. If you want to add anything to Andy, then once I've had my initial spiel and welcome everything, I am very happy. Also, I know you have limited time to have you guys talking as much as you have stuff on your mind.
Yeah, sounds great. I love it.
Good.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead, Anders. Yeah, no, all you.
Okay. I mean, I thought you had something you wanted to jump in with, but so the reason I was thinking I'd love to have Andy on today as well. And by the way, like logistical information, Ryan will be here. He will be late as usual, but this time he said, just go ahead without me. So he'll pop in all of a sudden. And Ben is it was strictly a logistical. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it. But he will if he can. Of course, we would love to have both Ben and Ryan on as well. But I was having this conversation with Andy as he was cutting out this delicious brisket in my kitchen, and we were talking about MicroStrategy, and we were talking about a couple of things like evaluation. We were also talking about, if you remember, Andy, that this conversation I've asked you guys a couple of times, Jeff. We've spoken on this topic. In our mind, no doubt MicroStrategy will be the company that is the most valuable and have the by far strongest and biggest balance sheet. No one will be able to catch up on the amount of Bitcoin that they have now and that they will have in the future. I mean, they just added more than 10% just today, which is ridiculous in a good way. And Andy, I asked Andy, so how can they, let's say they end up with 1 million Bitcoin on the balance sheet. How can they use that to, once we're in a world where the dollar doesn't exist anymore, which I believe we will in my lifetime, how are they going to get a return on having that 1 million without putting them at major risk, without, taking on risk that puts the shareholder value at risk? And Andy, you had a point where you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, where of course you can get a return on your balance sheet, on your equity, but there's nothing showing that if it's a giant balance sheet that you have outsized returns compared to someone that still has big money, right? So your thoughts on that, Andy, and then your thoughts on that, Jeff, afterwards.
Yeah, sure. I'll poke the bull, who is Punter Jeff here. And one of the things I'm trying to figure out, is what's this thing worth, and the valuation framework. And sorry, I'll probably be the wet blanket, but I'm the guy who's trying to get his head around what multiple of balance sheet Bitcoin, multiple of NAV is this thing worth. And so that's the ultimate goal, and I'm learning, I'm trying to figure out, what we don't even know what Bitcoin's worth, let alone what a company whose strategy is built around Bitcoin is worth. But yeah, the thought I had was around, are there actually economies to scale, or are there actually unique things that a company like MicroStrategy can do with a giant bag of Bitcoin? And I was thinking about the biggest banks as a very imperfect analog. Does JP Morgan have certain economies to scale? Yes, although arguably some of those may come from the backstop of the U.S. government, the money printer in chief. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to put a finer point on what these great things that MicroStrategy might do with this this pile of Bitcoin. So I'll hand it over.
Yeah, I this is a unique conversation, and I think I've got an interesting lens into what they could possibly do, just given my background and role in the job that I work in right now. So, as a reinsurance broker, I sell insurance to insurance companies, and I tranche out different risk profiles, and I sell them across the globe to diversified panels and pools of capital everywhere. Now, those pools of capital, how they take this risk on is they are using collateral of some sort. So they either have like a line of credit, or they've got a rating from an institution, or the third option is they post collateral to a bank account. And so that collateral is then used as leverage to protect against a future liability at some point in the future. So where I think this goes, or what I think MicroStrategy is sitting on, is the best collateral on the planet, right? It's incredibly transparent. You can track it on the ledger. It can be posted to lever against in insurance and banking, lending, et cetera. I think that's one potential avenue. And I think there's also a whole new world of, like banking and lending and financial infrastructure that's going to be built out over the next decade that we don't even know the products are right now. So, one, I think there's a collateral perspective. Two, there's going to be a technological advancement perspective that is unknown, and I would rather own it and be part of the ride. With that in mind, I mean, Bitcoin also kind of breaks your existing infrastructure of how you think about like the financial world. And it takes how do I want to say this? I was speaking with Jeff Booth about Bitcoin as a deflationary asset, and how you kind of need to think a little bit differently, almost like throw out your existing notion of like how the world works. And we may see an economy that works completely different because the money isn't broken. It's not decaying, it's not deflating. And we may see just a flourishment, a future that's flourishing with economic prosperity, which will lead to other financial products that are available in the future that we don't know about. So I like to think of it as very similar as if you were buying Amazon in 2005, and you knew that they sold things, but you primarily knew them as a bookstore, like an online book retailer. But you knew that there was something more there. And if you would have bought Amazon in 2005, not knowing that they're going to be the largest cloud service infrastructure company in the world and a global distribution behemoth, I mean, some people saw that potential. And I think we've got a very similar potential here with MicroStrategy, where the future is yet to be written.
So I agree that there's so many things already has happened in Bitcoin that we didn't see like a few years back. Is creativity and everything, and the technological advancements that the really smart people keep making stuff we couldn't really foresee. Only a few people could see that, and we have ourselves another of my favorite quants here. We have Raekwon in the house. Let me see if I can finish my train of thought there.
Collateral, financial infrastructure.
Collateral, yeah. But at the end of the day, they still need, I mean, they will be seeking a return on that. And what is your guys' ideas on like what kind of return could they? What kind of
Just to
return
be-
do you expect in your business, in your line of business, Jeff, where you repackage you're a reassurance broker, right? Reinsurance
Reinsurance
broker.
broker. Yeah.
So at a relatively low risk, what kind of return are you getting on your capital? And is that what we could expect?
Yeah.
Like, your thoughts?
I don't think MicroStrategy is going to put any of the, to be very clear, I don't think MicroStrategy is going to put any of their Bitcoin at risk for 15 years, right? Like we're in the accumulation time, and we're in this Bitcoin yielding perspective. Now, 15, 20 years from now, it could look a lot different, and we may not know exactly what that looks like. And honestly, thinking about yield in today's financial design, it's like completely speculative and probably not worth the time, because the world's going to look different.
So can I jump in here for a sec? Let me see if I can screen share. So Jeff, you mentioned thinking of MicroStrategy as the next Amazon. Reminded me of an article I published, looks like almost exactly 4 years ago. I don't know if you guys could see that.
Bitcoin is the next Amazon.
This is an article I put out on CoinDesk, and my exactly. A headline there was Bitcoin is the next Amazon. So I like your thinking style there. I guess what I'm still not hearing, and by the way, I could be wrong. Maybe it's base layer Bitcoin is not Amazon. Maybe MicroStrategy is Amazon. I guess what I'm still struggling to wrap my head around is if we know the price of the underlying, how are you thinking about the valuation relative to the underlying? I agree with all the things you said.
Like the MNAV.
Well, or anything. I mean,
just like any valuation.
Any valuation framework, whatsoever. Yeah.
Well, you kind of have to think about, what is an equity period. You kind of have to start with, like, how do you value any equity? How do you value Apple? How do you compare Apple to Exxon? How do you compare Apple to JP Morgan? And I mean, there's no easy way to do that, right? So I like to think about what is the existing design of the equity market, and how does the equity market work today, and what causes valuations for other, equities that are particularly at the top of the publicly traded leaderboard, that have technological moats, and have got thrust to the top of the leaderboard and stay at the top of the leaderboard, and why does that exist? So I take that perspective, and market cap is the true only metric that you can use to compare, like, one company to another company, because they all have different types of assets, they all have different types of revenue, they all have different types of cash flows, et cetera, all denominated in fiat for the most part. And now you have this new company, or MicroStrategy, been around for a long time, but they've transitioned, and they've got more financial firepower than any other company in the entire equity market. And if any other company in the equity market tried to catch them from a financial firepower perspective, they're going to run the price of Bitcoin up, which just makes MicroStrategy even more valuable. So again, I like to think about the equity market in general and the structure of the equity market. The equity market itself is forward looking, and the only true metric that you can use to compare is market cap. So
the only true market, is market cap. Yeah, look, I mean, I liked your initial question of how do you value Exxon, how do you value Apple? I think
compared to each other.
Yeah.
How do you know? How do you know is one's more valuable than the other?
Yeah, I think you look at expected growth in earnings and cash flow. I think that's what most people would say.
But that requires the entire market to do it. And then the entire market is not in agreement of how to value those companies.
No doubt you're right about that. That's what makes the market. Some people are more bullish, and some people are less bullish. And yeah, look, the classic trope with Bitcoin itself is how do you value it? I went to the trouble of writing a fulsome thesis on my valuation of Bitcoin. I wrote a book or published a book format for it called Why Buy Bitcoin, and I
Buy
talk about
Bitcoin.
yeah, exactly. I
You
talk about
refuse
it's going to take market share from gold, and it's going to take market share from offshore assets, and it's going to take market share from equities and fixed income and all that stuff. But I did size those markets, and I did make an estimation of how much share it's going to take. And so there was some quantitative basis for it.
Yeah.
So nobody's denying that MicroStrategy could get very, very valuable, and it may join the industry indices and get fund flows, and it'll all be on the back of Bitcoin going up. But I guess I got to ask a question, like, is it worth 100 times NAV in terms of its balance sheet? Is it worth 10 times? I mean, do you
I don't think that's
you
a
just
worthy
make no
metric.
attempt at all to compare it to the balance sheet Bitcoin?
Go ahead, Brad. Jump in.
I have to interject. I'm going to explode.
Do it.
I'm going to explode.
I'm sorry.
Please.
Or the eject button's going to get pressed. But okay, a couple quick things. What Jeff laid out there is like Genesis chapter 1, the book of MicroStrategy. Like that is like the most like base primer that, but I want to really like highlight that point. That is like the beginning of the story. There's a couple other things we have to address here. This is one of the things that, and I'm not suggesting, Andy, that you're in this group by any stretch of the imagination, but this is one of the things that the 1x MNAV bears fundamentally never have and never will understand that they should be valuing this thing with 500,000 Bitcoin, 750K, and $1 million. And we can debate about our markets are forward looking, not a surprise. We can debate about how far looking are they, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. I would say something for MicroStrategy specifically, not like a broad market call, but MSTR specifically, it's got to be like 10 to 20 years. Like, and then once we open our minds up to that idea, it's like, now I can talk about like the longest term catalyst of like, there is no mathematical limit to how high Bitcoin per share can go with buybacks and splits. You know what I mean? So people might want to value this today. I think they're massively wrong. I can talk about the financial engineering, and this is where it comes back to the Amazon piece, is that I see your comparison to Bitcoin itself. I would just perhaps raise that and say the more apt comparison is like an operating company, so the comparison's easier. But they are the financial engineers that stand in between Bitcoin and the equity market, the corporate bond market, and the options market, or what I would refer to it as the volatility market. And then there's also other products that are able to be built off this, yada, like MSTY, yada, yada. But it's really like them bringing this product to the market. The volatility is the product. And by the way, the blended average on the corporate bonds outperformed Bitcoin, the underlying. Remember that from the earnings call a couple weeks ago? Like,
no, I'm familiar. It's an exceptional result. No argument.
Yeah.
Like the equity, the best performing equity, the corporate bond, the best performing bond. The options market, people have made fortunes in the options market. So it's just like every investor aspect, or the folks who just want to leverage ETF, MSTU, for every like type of investor imaginable, like there's an MSTR product for you. You know what I mean?
But I think it raises, but I want to say welcome also to Ben. Very happy that you were able to join us for a little bit, Ben. But to me, tying this together is I keep looking at MicroStrategy, not in what is the market cap in dollars. I don't care really about that. I care what is the market cap measured in the only true unit of account in my world, which is Bitcoin. And they are worth around 800,000 Bitcoin right now. And to me, that's what I compare with where I think they're going to end up with in the future. If they end up acquiring 2 million Bitcoin or 1.5, then obviously That's how I'm looking. Not that they won't continue to go up in dollars a lot, but the moment if they got overpriced in Bitcoin terms, all it would mean is they would still go up, but then Bitcoin itself would go up faster, unlike the last 12 months. That's all I'm saying. But we can talk more about that. Ben, it's so good to see you as well. And Ryan, also welcome to you for joining in. And Ben, how are you? And what's your thoughts? Are you able to stay emotionally stable after making sick gains this morning?
I'm so numb to this at this point that, yeah, I mean, I'm not anywhere near the point where I'm going to get excited yet, because I know we're just starting, right? We're starting to finally get the buyers that don't care about the price. You can see it in the order books when you've got orders of 50 Bitcoin getting submitted as market orders. That's not someone who cares what the price is, right? So, you look at those things and I go, why am I going to get excited now? The people with the money that don't care about the fiat currency price just showed up. They make the fiat currency. Why do they care what the price is that they buy Bitcoin at? They just have to buy it to keep their power ranking in the global standings of financials. So anyways, but to the MNAV thing, I actually have a much more practical answer that I like to look at for how you can look at valuing this. And one of those is, what if you just look at MicroStrategy as this engine to capitalize on inefficiencies across governments worldwide? So Bitcoin's a global collateral asset, right? It's the best collateral. So the carry trade, if you look at carry across the world, you've got places like Switzerland where rates are 1% right now. If they could only borrow up to half of their Bitcoin value, for easy math, say that Bitcoin's at 100 grand. So that gives them what? 27 billion, cut that in half, right? 13 and a half. And then what if they bring that over into a market like the US? Obviously, I'm just using these two as examples. You could probably find a much more inefficient currency to borrow in. And all of a sudden, all your arbitraging is taking money from another country, moving it to one you view as more stable, collecting the spread on the rates in those two countries. And if that spread's 2.5%, which I think it's actually more than that right now, that's what, $350 million a year just by borrowing money from one country and bringing it to another and depositing it. That's it, right? So I kind of look at that as a very base layer example of how they could monetize this, because they're holding an asset that's a globally desired collateral, right? It's one of the best things you'll be able to lend against here pretty shortly. And if the players are starting to show up that we think are starting to show up, they've also got a desire for it. But you could take advantage of efficiencies globally just like that, just by having the base of your company be built on an asset that has global value. And I think people are underestimating that, right? Not even looking at the US bank markets, right? Say the US banks never open this up and can custody Bitcoin and give you an interest rate for depositing your Bitcoin there, right? This is a global asset. It's not a US-based asset. So I think they actually have more flexibility than people are giving them credit for. And I think it's those types of unknowns that give them this premium out there, because that is a possibility, right? There's nothing preventing them from doing that right now other than the desire of those countries to lend them money. But it's a real possibility for a way that if people needed to see them generating a return in, US dollar terms, I guess, I mean, we're all looking for Bitcoin per share, but if the markets really needed to see a US dollar return, there's absolutely ways for them to do it. And so I look at those types of opportunities and go, what if they did start doing that? And all of a sudden I'm looking, going, they're not making $65 million a year now, they're making $410 million a year now. What happened, right? And the bigger that value gets, right? If 100,000 is not the stopping point and we're at 500,000, that scale gets really out of hand really fast. So I look at MNAV, I get why people talk about it. I look at that as it's a point in time metric, right? So I view MNAV as, what do I look at in the depths of a bear market? If we get a huge bear market where this thing just craters and it's not desirable and we've all been bamboozled and countries don't want it and no more companies join in and this thing's just trending down, well, of course, the MNAV is going to come down to the fair market value of what Bitcoin's trading at, right? That's reality, 1 times MNAV. But I look at that as a bear case for what do we look at if there's a correction in a bear market. We're always going to be arguing about this as a point in time metric. But to me, it's more of a sentiment indicator than it is anything else at this point. So that's my view on the MNAV discussion.
Yeah, look, I think I'm open to the idea of a floor or a quasi floor relative to the, I guess you're calling it MNAV. Sorry, I'm not familiar with your terminology. The Bitcoin value, essentially, right?
Yep.
And so somewhere between that, the quote unquote bear case, I think realistically, if and when we get a big downturn, history suggests that things trade to discounts relative to book. So we probably could think of an interesting bet. Will MicroStrategy never again trade below MNAV? I think there's probably an interesting bet to be had there, even if it's only for a moment. But let's just say I accept your, accept it as a floor. I'm still interested in, what is the upside multiple? And I do have some concerns about scale. I think that you can create an optimistic case, which is, the biggest pile gets the highest returns on capital, although nothing in the history of finance that I can think of off the top of my head would necessarily tell you that would be the precedence. I mean, you mentioned using the collateral for funding carry trades in FX. Occasionally in history, we've had very large players doing that. I think of long-term capital management, of course, which blew up, even with the help of Wall Street. All those guys having all those guys on their side. They technically saved it, but it basically went away. So yeah, I love it. We got a bear side case. Let's talk about the bull valuation case. Other than up.
It's trading below O'Reilly Auto Parts, Target, Chipotle. All of these companies have zero Bitcoin.
So and my point there is, like, no doubt MicroStrategy is going to shoot way above all of those. Like, I have no doubt MicroStrategy is, hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000x or whatever from here. But in my mind, I'm looking at the long term, like when the dollar doesn't exist anymore. But that may be, I know that's a little bit out, but I like to think as far out as I can in terms of, yes, it will continue to go up phenomenally in dollars, but I'm my opportunity cost to owning MicroStrategy is Bitcoin. So I want to say, okay, which one do I expect to do better? But Ryan, I know you had some thoughts here while Andy was talking, so why don't you jump in?
Right before I do that, the dollar disappearing and the banks disappearing. Can I make one side point very quick?
Whatever you want.
Bitcoiners are such like a serious cult, and I'm pro cult, by the way. I've only like invested in cults: Tesla, Bitcoin, MicroStrategy. I'm cult only. I get it, but they bring certain ethos with them to the discourse. One of them is known as the freedom of speech. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you've heard Michael Saylor utter the phrase paranoid crypto anarchist on the space with, I believe, Maddie, or Madison is her name. Forgive me, it's escaping me. And everyone cried so hard about that. And you know what? And I'm not just like a blind soldier to this guy. If he buys Ethereum tomorrow, I'm out. I sold Tesla. I thought I would never sell it. I'm not just like a blind soldier following the ethos. I agree with him. I don't think the dollar is going to like disappear. I don't think the NATO empire is just going to dissolve. I don't think America is going to be conquered militaristically. So given that worldview, JP Morgan's going to be here to stay. The big four banks are going to be here to stay. But the Bitcoiners come with such an extremism approach of like betting on the downfall of everything. Real estate's going to collapse against Bitcoin overnight. It's like, no, it's not. The more likely scenario is that everything goes up, but real estate goes up much less than Bitcoin. So we can all still win in this scenario that like the dollar still exists because it's the pristine collateral. So I don't want to I don't want to sidetrack too, but actually, no, that was the main thing I want to say. Let these guys talk about how high the stock can go. That was the main thing I wanted to say. That's it.
Can I just say, Ryan, I'm 100% on your team. There was a time earlier in my Bitcoin journey. I think probably everyone has this moment when they think hyper Bitcoinization is happening right now. By the way, it might be happening right now. Although I've asked myself that question, I don't know how many times over the years, and especially in what were the early days for me, which was 2017. And yeah, I used to worry about it happening in a disorderly manner, and I think it could still happen that way. But my base case is that yeah, it takes a while, and the infrastructure is built out, and we integrate with the existing financial system, and that basically, for the most part, it goes smoothly. You know, people talk about the death of the dollar, and I think it will happen someday. And also, I'm not that worried that it's going to happen anytime soon.
So I just want to make one more point on that. Is I don't think the equity market's going away, right? Right now, it's priced in dollars.
Yeah.
And I think the equity market can be priced in Bitcoin. And I think companies can still be valued at a multiple and will be valued at a multiple at some point in the future, even if they're priced in Bitcoin. And while there are only 21 million Bitcoin that could ever be available, there's likely going to be, I don't know, 210 million Bitcoin worth of value in the world, like in real estate, equities. There's going to be other utility value for holding these equities. Also,
Sure.
at any point in the future, there's like commoditized, tokenized commodities or tokenized stocks may begin to have utility beyond just their hold value, right? Like you might be able to go at some point in the future, trade MSTR peer-to-peer with a fraction of a share or something like that. I think we're moving toward that future, that digitalized, commoditized future.
Here's why
No argument.
I struggle with any type of price predictions, and I've publicly gone away from doing a lot of price predictions, is because what I think we're watching with Bitcoin is such a different scale than what people have traditionally been able to comprehend. If you think about all the discussions that have been happening in the US about things like wealth redistribution, right? Comes up all the time. I think you're about to watch that happen on the global scale between nations. When you've got countries like BRICS publicly saying that they want to settle trade in Bitcoin, and they're mining Bitcoin, and they're accumulating Bitcoin, when you have that happen and those combined GDPs are so significant on a global scale, it messages out to the rest of the world that they're adopting an asset that is now going to be able to be universally transferred between them without having to hold everybody else's currencies on your own book or on their books. And if you're outside of that, you have to accumulate now just to stay on par with your current economic standing on the global trade market. So as a national security reason, if you're the United States and you're the most powerful economy in the world, and all the countries have now teamed together to essentially say, we don't want to use your dollar anymore, right? You've wielded too much power globally, using your dollar as the reserve currency. We're going away from that. If you're the US dollar, you can't just cling to your dollar and say, no, it's always going to be this. If they've adopted something else and they start settling trade with other countries globally in that currency, you really don't have a choice but to accumulate it, if not for any other reason than to preserve your own economic power on the global stage. And I don't know how to quantify that in my head, but I know it's big. But it's why I don't try to do price predictions, because I think when you get that type of panic, right? If this is a redistribution of global wealth, global trade wealth across the globe, you don't want to be the country that's last, even if it's just protective. You can't have zero. That can't be an option anymore, because all the people that are openly looking to dethrone you are saying this is where they're going, and their economies are too powerful to be able to ignore. So when I look at, like the price of Bitcoin, everyone's getting excited. It's coming to 100,000. And I personally think it's nothing. I couldn't tell you where it's going. I have no idea, because the US, when they start buying, say we start buying in February, If all these other countries decide that they're going to come and front run that and start their own accumulation before the US can even get out of the gates, the US is going to have to be a buyer at whatever price they push it up to, right? And the US doesn't care what US dollar value they're buying the Bitcoin in. It's not like they're worried about trade execution to spend less dollars. They create them. So it's kind of irrelevant to them. This is more of a protective measure, if anything, just a hedge against what the rest of the world is doing. And you can't be caught flat-footed allowing yourself to diminish economically on the global trade scale. So when I look at those types of activities coming down the pipeline here, it's hard to be anything but extremely bullish. I just have no idea where to cap the bullishness, right?
Okay.
I mean, you've got to
All
come
right.
up with a way to monetize that, and I don't know how to.
All right. And you're saying you don't know how to monetize, or really you don't know how to discount it back to today. That's kind of
Sure,
what you're saying.
That's right.
Like I have I have a price prediction that I published, in my book 5 years ago, and it was a 10-year view, and it was 400K on a 10-year view, and we're halfway there time wise, and we might overshoot it. Although my best guess is we probably, what is that, one cycle away? What sort of baseline? There's no equilibrium, but next cycle, where are we likely to be? Probably in the 6 figures, right? We could be in the 7 figures. I mean, who knows? But base case 6 figures. So, and look, as far as the potential full valuation, no argument. Much higher. Let me post a question, and you guys are being good sports, right? I'm playing. I'm not going to say bear. I'm going to say inquisitor / skeptic. What percent of coins do you think governments of the world will allow a single entity to hold? Wait, Ryan's saying something. I can't hear you.
They can't stop it. I mean, there is no legal precedent to stop a company, especially with fiduciary responsibilities such as, and I'm paraphrasing here, but just for the audience, I know you guys know it, but you have to act in the best interest of your shareholders. You have to come up with a mission, a plan. You have to present that plan to the public, and all the numbers are coming out, baby, all of them. Formally, informally, earnings calls, we're going to talk about it. And then you have to do that thing. So I don't like, there's no legal precedent for them breaking any rule, or you get what I'm saying?
Well, no, I mean, look, the U.S. Justice Department, Federal Trade Commission, pick your favorite agency of the U.S. executive, puts limits on companies' sizes all the time. They don't always win in court. The Microsoft, other micro company, the Microsoft case is one classic case. They didn't ultimately break it up, but it could have gone another direction. I mean, I think the bull case in that kind of a scenario probably is if there's a future breakup, it's probably fine, because if you spin it into multiple entities, each of those entities, probably does fine. I mean, it could look like Ma Bell, right? The monopoly phone company in America was split into, I think it was 7 pieces, and the equity value of those various companies all went up over time. Not that I want to be a phone company stockholder anymore, but they had a pretty good run over a few decades. I'm just curious, how many coins you think that that Coinbase or whoever else is custodying for MicroStrategy, will be allowed to concentrate in one place.
I'll be very quick because I want to hear from these guys as well, but this is so right up my alley, and I'm familiar with what you said, Andy, about the Microsoft case. That's when Bill Gates actually was looking for distractions because he was so pissed off with the outcome of them, the legal action and blah, blah, blah. I'm no expert on that, but the broader story, I'm with you.
Yeah.
That was so there's 2 kinds of monopolies, and this is important because I say MicroStrategy is a monopoly as small talk, as I'm getting to know someone for the first time. But there's 2 distinct, different kind of monopolies out there. There's the bad monopolies and the good monopolies, let's call them. Bad monopolies, a rent, like landlords who just up the rent like massively each year. Kind of Bill Gates in this scenario by like just so aggressively forcing everyone to like use their product and like not letting like other companies flourish. The state was kind of right on that, which is a lot coming from me. And I could go on about the bad examples. The good examples are Tesla. There is no other EV. There is no relevant EV investing opportunity on planet Earth or the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, other than Tesla Motors. They're all dogs, all of them. I could ramble on that. I won't. Number 2, NVIDIA. They have a monster like monopoly in their like chip making position. Number 3, MicroStrategy has like an unassailable lead. And even if that was to be passed, no other, like if Meta buys 300,000 Bitcoin tomorrow, as if they could just do that without a shareholder vote in 2 months, blah, blah, blah. Let's just say they could. The majority of their market cap, like 75, 80% of their market cap is still going to be derived from the earnings from their like Meta, WhatsApp, that whole business, that whole thing. So it's impossible to emulate the leveraged Bitcoin equity. It's not IBIT. Nobody cares about that. Like it's MicroStrategy. You know what I mean? So yeah, let me
look, and I'm happy to concede that point. You know, if you're arguing nobody can catch them, and that seems right to me.
Yeah, no one will catch them in terms of how much Bitcoin they're holding. What we spoke about, Andy, on election night is to which extent does that give them the opportunity to have outsized returns from having that giant balance sheet
on a per share basis,
on a per share per Bitcoin on the balance sheet basis. But Jeff, I'm thinking that maybe do you want to add something here or?
Yeah, I was just going to say they're all, you know, those 3 examples that Ryan brought up, Tesla, NVIDIA, and MicroStrategy, good monopoly being like positive externalities for all of humanity, right? Like MicroStrategy running this operation doesn't like prohibit anybody else. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, look, it's 0 to 1. I mean, it's Peter Thiel, right? Peter Thiel published the book, and he talks about how, as an investor, you want to own monopolies, and even if they don't last forever, it's you want to invest in innovative companies that do something new and different, that gives them a de facto monopoly position, you know, in their marketplace, in their product, at least for some period of time, and it may or may not last forever, but you can create obviously tons of equity value by doing that.
I think what's important here, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but the monopolies the government has broken up is when they have a monopoly on a product or service where they're saying, well, now no one else can compete. And I think the place MicroStrategy has a monopoly is on the equity markets of Bitcoin, equitizing it into convertible bonds, just normal bonds, ATMs, the other products, MSTU, the call option, like all of that. So, and I don't think that falls under what the government will say, oh, well, you guys have a monopoly. They just happen to have it on this particular financial products on Bitcoin. Your thoughts?
I want to jump in there real quick. Actually, Ryan, go ahead. You wanted to finish your thought.
It's just a quick point of clarity. Like the reason I laid out the good and bad monopolies, and I kind of lost my train of thought there at the end, but the reason that we arrived at that question was just so people know it's not us just rambling in an unconnected pattern. The reason that we got on that monopoly talk was because Andy said, you know, what would be like the state's limits? What would be that? So I wanted to lay out the good and the bad to say like the bad is a monopoly of force or a monopoly of just like leveraging, you know, just leveraging customer client relationships, like that kind of stuff. But then there's good monopolies, like monopolies of value creation, who like didn't do anything wrong. Like AMD is a great company. It's no NVIDIA. Do you get what I'm saying? NVIDIA is just way better, and the market cap has reflected that. So like so just to wrap a bow on this, back to Andy's point, and then I'm happy to pass it and shut up for a while. That's how we got here on the good and bad like monopolies. I just don't see there being like no one's going after Nvidia. The reason they're going after Tesla is because Elon made himself an enemy of the state. So then they're going to be persecuted against. No one bothers Jensen Huang. And I think we're on the Jensen Huang track with MSTR.
It's a good point.
So I'm going to flip over to monopolies, thinking about monopoly on the equity market and how MicroStrategy is managing offering products for every type of buyer, which I think is really interesting. And Andy, I don't think I've talked to you about this point yet, and I just found it out recently. Insurance companies, and this is just because of the world I work in, insurance companies can't put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. If they did put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, they wouldn't be able to get any credit for it.
Right.
And they can't leverage against it.
Right. So MicroStrategy solves this for them. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. So they could, but they could put convertible debt on their balance sheet and they could lever against it. And they could put equities on their balance sheet, then they could lever against it. And so now you have this product, and regulators are not going to move fast on this, right? Like AM Best is going to take years in order to approve Bitcoin. I mean, I think they're still just working through like approving stable coins, and they're giving them stable coins a 15% haircut because they're not as good as cash. So these pools of capital are incredibly deep that want to buy these products. And, you know, looking to raise $21 billion, I think is going to be incredibly easy. They could probably raise $21 billion in the insurance market alone, let alone like the $300 trillion debt market, the $800 billion convertible debt market. And, you know, MicroStrategy can make up a very small portion of that really, really easily.
Ben.
Yeah, by the way,
Yeah, so
I agree. Look, I agree that there's a hack there, and the premise, you know, being that MicroStrategy, that Michael Saylor can offer a menu of, you know, every layer of the capital structure, you know, choose your own adventure, choose your favorite, you know, risk slice. I'll sell it to you, and I do think that has value. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I was just going to say to the question about government limits. One, I think that's going to be a little ways off, because I think with where it stands currently, the first thing that they're going to need to do is attract it within their borders, however they do that. And then later down the line, you know, say they're not able to accumulate it on their own, right? Say that the US government can't just go out and buy all this on their own. What they have the ability to do, if it's held within corporations within their own borders, is start giving them incentives to start transferring that over to the government. It could be in terms of, you know, reducing tax burdens if you pay them in Bitcoin versus in US dollars, or whatever incentive structure they want to put out there to try to start gathering more and more of that Bitcoin as they need it to compete on the global scale. So I think it's going to be very different. I mean, we're talking about this largely within the confines of the US on this call, because a lot of us live here, so that's kind of our top of mind. But every government's going to be different. But if it does start becoming this highly desired asset at a nation state level, I think you first have to focus on making your economy very open to adopting this type of an asset, to get it in your borders first. And once you have it in your borders, you can work the incentive structure to try to get it within the government control if that's what they want to do ultimately. But that's kind of how I'd see it playing out. I don't think they'll put necessarily a limit on it, but they might put some high incentives on being willing to part with some of it so that the government could accumulate on the back end. So I do have to run. I appreciate the chat, guys, but I do have to run.
Ben, thanks you for
Ben.
joining.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Sorry you couldn't get more mic time, but we love all your PhD level insights. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I've got to take off as well. Great to see you guys. Andy, great to see you. Anders, thanks for having me.
Thank you
Jeff.
so much, Jeff.
Cheers.
And Jeff, just real quick, are you going live with MicroStrategy True North here at 7 p.m.?
Yeah.
PST?
Impromptu MSTR True North call at 7:30 p.m. PST. Yeah, that's in a couple hours. And look forward to having everybody join. Absolutely.
So thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it. So I'll just give some more pumps to that. So that's in 1.5 hours, guys. You can watch the Quant Bros here and some other MicroStrategy.
Bring me orange headband. It looks red on camera, but it's orange.
Okay. All right,
There you
guys.
go.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
See ya.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Good talk.
See you, Andy.
There comes the fireworks.
Love to see it.
I'll stay.
I-
I'm happy to stay.
Of course.
I gotta wrap too. I'm sorry. I didn't budget more than an hour. I apologize. Ryan, it's been a pleasure though. Been a pleasure chatting with you. Anders, always a pleasure, my man. Appreciate you guys, letting me be the skeptic and the wet blanket here. I mean, I know you guys probably just want to do somersaults and celebrate how you're out of the money calls have made,
Not
100x
me.
or whatnot.
I want the Bears here, and I want smart Bears, and I want them here. No celebrating. There's nothing to
All right.
celebrate.
There we go. There we go. It's early days. It's too early to celebrate. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, and let's talk about that. But don't worry, Andy. Like me and Ryan, we'll be doing somersault. We'll turn this into like full, just celebratory MicroStrategy Mondays in a few minutes. But no, Andy, thank you for not only like bringing that amazing brisket on election night, but also joining here. And I think it is important to have also points of views that are not necessarily as uber bullish as most of us, but that have some dashes of like questions that say, well, what about this side of the argument, so even though
Cool.
that the chat partly was going at you, Andy, not all of them, you're getting a lot of love as well. I thank you so much, appreciate it, and we'll do this again sometime. Thank you for being on, Andy. Hope to see you soon.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys tolerating the skeptic here, tolerating it. All right. Cheers. Have a great one.
Cheers.
Have a couple of good drinks tonight. Big day.
All
For
right.
Bitcoin. See ya.
All right. Thanks, Andy. See you, man. There we go. All right.
He was fun. He was fun.
Oh, Andy is great. I mean, let's be honest. All three guys that bounced are great, as are you, of course, Ryan. No, Andy is great. And as I said early on, I give him credit for. I think so. He was the first in the summer of 2020 to tweet out that after he Saylor bought $500 million or close to or around that of Bitcoin, saying like, yeah, they could also start selling bonds and buying more Bitcoin, So he saw it early on, and that was and that's cool. He's a smart guy, and no more inflation, you call yourself there, I see. But yeah, this hat is from you.
Wow.
Bitcoin Shooter 21. There you go. So there's a little thank you. Ryan, you had a good day. I saw you tweeted out that instead of logging into your account, you decided to kick back a little bit on the beach and not look at those 40%, 50%, 30% gains or whatever. Daily gains.
Here's the thing. I thought the markets were closed today.
Oh,
And I'm not playing and I don't even care about the veteran stuff. I really don't. I tell young people, like, don't join. It's mostly a scam. We can talk about that later, but it's a loaded topic, but very loaded topic. But I assumed a country of patriots would allow the warriors of MicroStrategy, like irresponsibly long, would allow, in a sense of patriotism, would allow them to have the day off. I had a friend, you can see her name in the post. It was Colleen. Like, we wanted to, talk strategy, do a little bit of this. She had time, free miles to like come hang out in San Diego. She came down, and I was like, not working. But here's the much bigger point here, right? Is that my perspective is such, and I know this isn't for everyone. Some people like happiness. Some people enjoy that. Not me. I stay emotionless, soulless, like just looking at the data. I can tag a bunch of like my own posts that were like omega bullish, like that explosion thread with like the Lambo and like the chart with the implied volatility, like that one. Like I list out every catalyst like in detail. Like I'm not bragging because I don't care. I'm an idiot, but I expected this to happen. You know what I mean? And it's it's still happening. And I think we're very much at the beginning of a trend. And here's how I can put my personal like accountability out there. I'm never selling the stock, but I am going to be talking, let's say roughly, let's guess here, October, November, December of 2025, where I'm like selling my leap calls. Or exercising them. I'll make the trade and then publish it, or just talk about what like that full transparency. Like I posted my book before. Like I'm pulling no punches here.
So and I think that's fair, and I think people are also curious about what you guys are doing individually, and it's very important to remember that that some of this stuff contains risk, and if you don't know what you're doing, stay away from it, right? I would personally say that something like buying and holding MicroStrategy itself for the next 20 years, I personally think is like a safe bet, right? Is something that will do well. And then there's the leverage products, like there's options, there is the leverage ETFs, and I personally got a little bit of MicroStrategy and a little bit of MSCU for the giggles, because well, I mean, I've been buying MicroStrategy for like my mom and like different family members, but I did not want to I didn't really have any funds to start buying MicroStrategy myself, and I didn't see it as, oh, I should do that because it's gonna like outperform significantly. And then this summer, when I read the news article that MSTU launched, was a 2x ETF, and that contains a lot of risk, right? That's
much,
yeah. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to put a little in MicroStrategy and a little in MSCU. And I think that what I think is worthwhile mentioning is, like, me personally, I'm actually now, as it goes up, every time there's like a pump day, I'm selling some of it and then putting that money in MicroStrategy. And I expect, so far, in my opinion, the 4-year Bitcoin cycle is still intact. Now, it might change if Trump starts like heavy accumulating on an like American level, like the richest country in the world. If he, like, one thing is El Salvador, right? They've accumulated around 12,000 Bitcoin. US already has 200,000 that they just, confiscated them. There wasn't like a strategic purchase. It's like they just took him. On top of that, if US starts DCAing in to Bitcoin, and then MicroStrategy is something that I want to also talk with you guys about. Maybe we can do that. They might help avert the bear market the way they are operating. And Saylor, now having seen a cycle, and might act differently or prepare for it. Okay, wait. What are we? I'm putting this on.
I just messaged Anders that in the chat. Yellow, thank you for joining. That fills my heart with joy. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all good. That's why we're here. This is well, it's not toxic happy hour, but that's what I did with Puppy. But we're just having fun, and trying to talk things that also are important and exciting, but looking like two guys that can't get a job like you and me at the same time,
That's the only way to do it.
I mean, once you're unemployable, why you want to look employable? Right?
I'm with you.
So, I mean, yeah. that being said, going back to the signal I'm trying to drum up, right? MSTR, the MSTR I have, I think I'm planning to just hold, till retirement. But the leverage products, of which there's many, for me, I have a little bit of MSTU. I'm dollar cost averaging out of that as it becomes too big a part of that little portfolio, and then I expect to be completely out of MSTU October next year, because I think that there could be a that is a likely top. In 2017 it was in December. In 21 it was in November. It could be October next year. Hey, it could come earlier, right? It could come in the middle of, and maybe it doesn't come. Maybe it's super cycle. We don't know. I just am not comfortable holding MSTU until after October next year. But I'll also say, Ryan, I'd love to hear your opinion on both, like this MSTR is a long-term, leverage is something you want to close down over the next 12 months. I also want to hear your opinion on, what did I have in mind? Yeah. So the MNAV, I think it's awesome and hilarious that despite MicroStrategy today outperforming Bitcoin, right? The MNAV is down from the close on Friday because MicroStrategy bought 27,200 Bitcoin. Okay. So MNAV one crowd, like it's just not happening. We're not going to one. And if we are like in a potential bear market, I don't think we will, but if we did, I would be going levered up to the on leverage long products on MicroStrategy, like MSU or call options and stuff like that. Leaps, I guess. Your thoughts, Ryan?
There was no questions there. Those are just your speaking points.
Yes, just okay. So I'll throw you a question then. Fair enough. That's very tough to be on a panel and just like, here's the mic. So I'll hand it over with a question, Ryan. How do you feel in terms of, are you planning to sit on your MicroStrategy throughout a potential bear market, or are you going to hang on to your MicroStrategy and your leverage products, which I know you're in call options or leaps? When are you planning, or what are you thinking? And what I wanted to say was, if MNAV goes bonkers right now, so I did manage to say it's actually down from Friday, despite outperforming because he bought so much Bitcoin. But if MNAV goes to 6, 7, 8, I'm not sure if I want to own any leverage, like AKA in my case MSTU anymore. You see what I mean? MNAV goes to 8 in December. What are you going to do? Are you going to sit on all your leverage products?
Great questions. I will answer these, and then afterwards I'll do like another hour. I just want to get up after this, get a beer. I'll stay for another hour. We'll get after it. But I got the two questions here: sell plan, and then like the MNAV piece. So yeah, I mean, I'm never selling the stock. My nieces and nephews are gonna own it. I'm not riding the waves with that. If anything, I'll just be like I'll just keep slowly DCAing, and it's like the main thing I own. I'll just keep slowly DCAing into it. And by the way, I didn't initially lay out the portfolio in such a way that like MSTR and MSTR options were the main thing. The market did that for me. You know what I mean? So these people who talk about like allocations, like it should be this percent, that percent, this percent. I used to have a bigger allocation into Bitcoin. And then in March of 2024, the biggest allocation to any one asset I had was long dated call options in MicroStrategy. It dwarfed everything out. So it's like, even like something like allocation is not like a static point in time. It changes. And so yeah, the sell plan, I'm never selling the stock because I can just deal in the options market. So to the extent that I want to buy my parents a house, I want to forgive my sister's like student loan debt, like I can do that. and just never sell the stock if I'm right about the options thing. And that's another key point, goes back to something you had said a while back about like, I think it is pretty crazy that this many people are talking about like MicroStrategy call options. That was originally just like me, Jeff, and then like Dan Hillary chimed in shortly after. And then Grain of Salt chimed in like bigly after. And then like the network effect of that has been like crazy. But the main point is like, and none of this is financial advice. It's just two friends like sharing ideas. Someone who's just like in MSTR is already like a winner, like how Grain of Salt would say. I mean, if Jeff and Ben and these characters, and like I guess you can throw myself in there, like if we're even like remotely right, it's a chart that looks like Apple Computer or like Nvidia. So like you don't look back with regret on the Nvidia chart and be like, I wish I was in the options. You don't do that with Apple 20, 30 years ago. But I wish I was in the options. No, you just wish you had a little bit of it that would have grown into a lot. So don't feel, and I don't even know where I'm going with this, but like don't feel any like pressure to like get involved. It is very complex. I'm going to look to do tomorrow. That's like my priority task for like a solo video, is to do an options introduction. And I also got to put out a post that says, like, what are all your questions about options? I understand people need to know, like, the basics, such as, like, what does buy to open or sell to open mean? Like, it's so easy to sell short, buy long. The options chain gets very messy. I get all of that stuff. But I'll put out a question. I'll put out a post just to ask the question, like, what questions do people have about options? But yeah, so that's my general sell plan. Like I'm never selling the stock, and I'm just gonna keep dealing in the options market. And there's no guarantees that I'm right about this, by the way, folks. There's no guarantee that any of us are right about this. But I think the idea of selling the MSTU, the leveraged ETF in October, November, December, pick your timeline, makes a ton of sense. I do own a little bit of MSTU. I bought it like 3 weeks ago in the aftermarket. I was like panic buying, and that was like the highest I could get. So I just went with that because the options market wasn't open.
I love it. Panic buying MSTU.
Yeah, it was like a true panic buy. I just gotten off the phone with a few people, and I was like fucking panic buying this. So the other thing there, the MNAV piece, it's like it's almost one of those things that like we shouldn't even be talking about, but we're going to, of course, everyone is. Fred Krueger and company talk about it every day. It's crazy. And they're working for us. It's like MNAV is just so like, it's such a dominant part of like his conversations. And they're just providing more and more airtime for this without even knowing it. But I think they're so massively wrong in many ways because they're valuing it. They're always valuing it off of today's Bitcoin. They're giving no value to the ability to borrow money at 50 basis points. They're giving no value to the concept of a sailor premium, which I've studied this stuff. It is so in line with both Musk and Steve Jobs specifically. And then Saylor himself, he said, you know, it's like, I'll tell you what I think about the MNAV discussion. That was like epic level stuff where and I don't know the growth rates like off the top of my head, but he's like, a company that's a growth company growing at 30 to 50% per year on an annualized basis tends to command, and this is very true for people who have any understanding of like venture capital and like early stage growth companies, they command a 30 to 50x like multiple on those earnings. And that does literally tie into earnings in a post FASB fair value world, because the equation is so simple for earnings per share next year. It'll just be the spot price of Bitcoin minus MSTR's cost basis of Bitcoin divided by the shares outstanding. So it's like a bet. If you think that margin is going to widen meaning the spread between the spot price and MSTR's cost basis, then like how could you possibly on earth try and like assign like a 2 or 3 or 4, even like an 8, like you said, in the present moment when like this amount of optionality is out there in the future, and also the massive like investor perception change that's going to happen in a post FASB fair value world. I'm going to be calling into Jim Cramer's show like the week before that change happens. It's going to be talked about on CNBC. Like, wow, did you see MicroStrategy? They normally have like 0, which is true, by the way. The number is normally very close to 0, slightly positive, slightly negative. I think it's going to like 70 or 80, depending on where like Bitcoin ends up. So $0 quarterly earnings per share, always at 0 flatline. Get overnight gap higher, 70, 80. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ryan, I think Jordan here has a good point. That's why I left the chair, not the chair. I left the chat on the screen. So why don't we are like 17 viewers away from 10,000. Well, now we did just cross it, 10,050 viewers live combined on YouTube and X.
Crazy.
It's a good day. It's Monday, right? It's Monday. Why don't we take that opportunity and grab that extra beer just to be a little bit celebratory? Andy's not here to keep us in check. We can just celebrate a little bit. I'll go grab another one. If I don't know if you have you live, I think, a life where you have a small mini fridge next to your desk with some like small cute bottles of Dom Perignon. Is that correct, or is that how you're living your life? Is that how trading is?
I live my life in a 10 by 10 box. I just live in here. I might also brush my teeth. I was drinking wine earlier. My teeth look like yellow. It's bothering me. No, I'm not actually doing it. I'm just gonna grab a beer though.
Yeah, why don't we just grab a beer now, and then we'll see if there's still people, and if anyone joins when there's no one on the screen, they're gonna join and go like, why is there 10,000 or whatever it is the next? Why is there 9,000 people? There's nothing going on. But I'll leave this, Jordan McLaughlin. Thank you. Let's grab some beers and come back and do another X amount of minutes. Right? Let's get something. All right, pardon us, dear chat. It's Monday, and some of those MicroStrategy related equities are up ridiculously. So we're grabbing a beer. I'm getting another one of these Bitburger, and I'm sure Ryan's going to be back anytime soon. I want to add to his point while he's gone that yellow, that's what she said. Anyways, just checking in on the chat a little bit. Where was the one? What was the beer comment? Then I'll go down from there. Monday starts the week. Yeah, Ryan is a ton of knowledge, and Ryan will be right back, guys. If you just joined, how the fuck is it only Monday? Yeah, it's things have been going up a lot today related to MicroStrategy. And well, I did see in the chat that MNAV is not updated on MicroStrategy tracker. I don't see how it cannot be, because the MNAV is down from Friday despite them buying more Bitcoin. And the price has outrun Bitcoin again yet today. So I don't know what kind of beer Ryan drinks. He definitely does not live in a 100 square foot box, because he could have made it to the fridge and back like 50 times now. So yeah, everyone, that's a good one. Ballsy, just, if unless you're able to stay on the Movember clean path, then feel free to grab a beer, obviously. So apparently on Robinhood, I know some people, I don't have that app, they can see late hours prices after hours, or a little bit more than what I'm able to see on Yahoo Finance. But let me just check Yahoo and see what it says. I think that is updated until 8 p.m. So that MicroStrategy is $358 on Yahoo Finance. MSTU that I did get a little bit off, taking it easy, $152. So the MSTU that I got a little while ago, it opened the day at $92, or it closed Friday at 92, and then Bitcoin moved over the weekend and it went from 92 to 152. It's hard to be pessimistic at this point. Did Ryan really plan to go brush his teeth while on a live show, live on air? What else could take this long? What are you up to, Ryan?
I did. I'm sitting.
Did?
I had to brush my teeth. I also had to shave the mustache. I'm like sitting down right now.
You may switch the camera back on. Oh, they're shiny. It's time for fireworks.
It's a little better. I thought I looked like such a dirtbag. I'm sorry. I had to.
No. I think it's because the reason you needed to do that is because you haven't exactly been in the office the whole day here today. You thought it was Veterans Day closed on markets as well. But so what did you get yourself? You're doing a Corona. I'm getting another one of these Bitburger. There we go.
That's very impressive to open the bottle that way. I can't do that. Very impressive.
Oh, and you know what's funny? I've done it twice now, and then this far away from my desk, they have landed the same place. The two
The two tops.
It's just, it's muscle memory, man. You roll like you roll, right?
It's physics, yeah.
Exactly right there. Display beats. I wanted to say to your point, first of all, cheers, Ryan, and congratulations with your portfolio today. We're not laughing yet. Well, a little bit, but not until 1 year from now will be, hopefully. So I think that's one. I didn't drink anything because I keep talking. So cheers. I'll actually have a sip. My parents have a family friend in Denmark who happens to be one of the richest guys in the country. And one thing he told me was, when it comes to something like investing, always leave a little bit less for the next guy. And to me, the reason I bring it up is I think there'll be a top Q4 next year. Maybe not. Maybe we'll keep going, but I think there'll be a top. And am I going to be able to time the top? No one will. Only the lucky one, right? You're not going to hit that one day where it peaks out at who knows what, 450,000, 900,000, who knows? So the leverage products will be pretty much gone by 1st of October. And then whatever's remaining, I'll probably dollar cost average out. You're not going to get the top. Don't be greedy. Greed is what leads a lot of people to actually lose everything. Right. And I had a very sad call from a friend this morning that got wrecked by a year ago buying into one of these trading scams where it's like, I don't even want to talk about it, but he actually lost everything. I'm like, this is a bad joke. Stop. He lost all his Bitcoin, unfortunately. I found out today. It's so sad. And it pisses me off. And anyways, and I told him a long time ago, don't trade, but okay, enough about that. See, now I sidetracked myself there a little bit, Ryan.
It happens.
It happens, right? For the best of us.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, what I wanted to say is definitely I want to avoid that greed. That greed means I write it all the way down, because I've tried that. I have tried that. And also I want to get back to the point you said, which I think is really, really good. If anyone is not really sure what to do and don't know about calls or leverage,
Right.
or leveraged, I'm not sure.
That was hilarious. But it's depending on how the bottle cap lands.
That's where it was. Hey, long only, Yellow. Long only. They're literally lying down there. The two bottle caps, same place. We'll try to see how Stella does another time next week. No, back to the point. If people are not sure about what are call options, what is leverage ETFs, what are all these things, what Ryan said is so valuable. People buying Apple in 1984, 89 and holding it till now, they don't beat themselves up over not getting Apple call options. They bought Apple at like 10 cents and own it now at, I don't even know what it is. Just like, and that's the thing with MicroStrategy that I like. I think we're both saying we're not planning to sell our MicroStrategy. You can hold that for 20 years. There'll be ups and downs, but it's like a safe thing to own in our opinion, relatively, compared to a lot of other things where, so if people are not sure and a little scared of these leverage products, just buying MicroStrategy, I mean, the beautiful thing is it still has a giant potential in front of it. Like, it's still going to go up, in my opinion, like 1,000x from here. Just buy the stock and laugh and join MicroStrategy Mondays. Watch MicroStrategy True North, which starts now also in 1 hour, from Punter Jeff's account and MicroStrategy True North account, on Monday, 7 p.m. and on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Am I right?
Yeah, and I'll show up late to that call, by the way. This is more fun. Can I be honest?
Oh.
This is more fun.
All right. Let's not tell anyone that, but thank you for that. And everyone, Ryan's just saying that to be nice to me, so I appreciate that, Ryan. He didn't mean it.
They're gonna be all formal in business. We're like laughing the whole time. I'll look
Imagine.
and tell them that. I don't care.
Imagine, Jerry. Here we are tracking where beer. What do you call it? A lid? What do you call it? A capsule. What do you call the thing on top of the beer? What do you call it?
Who cares?
Okay, I need to know. Okay,
you call it in the way. It's in the way of getting to what you actually. It's called in the way.
In the way. All right. So they're in the way. We are tracking how they land, and we call the shots based on that. Wait. So I'm just trying to keep up with the chat here because Yellow is now explaining the TA. And if anyone knows TA, it's Yellow. Have you ever seen his TAs where he's like drawing lines in different colors? It's very cute and entertaining and spot on every time.
I would take it a step further, if I may be so bold and introduce a controversial idea. No, but let me look into the camera for this. Nobody on Earth understands TA except Yellow. These people who talk about things like RSI and moving averages and all these other stochastic, they think they're like Sir Isaac Newton, like inventing like calculus. They're like, look, I overlaid something with the word stochastic onto an asset. I'm a genius. All of those calculations, which is what they are a derivative of price and volume. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These people who look at charts, other than Yellow, again, on topic, other than Yellow, these people who look at charts and they draw things like, look at this triangle, breakout imminent. It's like, No, like that's just not the planet I live on. Maybe it's the planet they live on, and God bless them. God bless them. I got no problem with these people, but it's not the planet I live on. What moves asset prices in either direction, up or down? We can talk about the downs. You want to talk about Lehman Brothers? They don't exist anymore, folks. They're no longer with us. And I know people who were shorting Lehman Brothers and buying VIX calls throughout 2000. Christopher Cole, maybe you've heard of him. I talk about him all the time. He was buying VIX calls on leverage, just like the whole like crescendo. Made a fortune when everyone else lost all their money. So we can talk about up, down, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing that moves asset prices is information, catalyst, events, not like, oh, I got the stochastic overlay. And here's the thing, too, to bring it back to the quantifiable, like seriousness sense. I've run the number, like people use RSI, right? Like the 14-day period RSI, and they think that's like biblical truth. And it's not just people on Twitter, by the way, it's people on CNBC. These so-called professional investors, professionals on CNBC, they talk about how like the consumer staples sector is oversold, overbought, whatever, either direction. And then they'll reference the RSI on like the consumer staples sector. Number one, that could not be more boring. Number two, I've run the correlation numbers between price and RSI across all risk assets. And just to give people a primer on like correlation testing, the only numbers that matter are like extremes, meaning the number is 95% or negative 95%. 95% out of like 1, so 0.95, same thing. I'll just use percentages because it's easier. 95% positive number or negative 95%, because then you have the positive correlation or the negative correlation, but you've developed an indicator. This is the kind of stuff I do on the quant side. You've developed an indicator that is highly like indicative of the actual price that we're buying and selling. These people with the RSI 14, like standard out of the box on TradingView or whatever, pick your site. It has a number that's like 0.02, meaning there is literally not opinion. There is literally no information there because it's in the middle. It's like at 0%. What I'm saying is plus 95 or negative 95. That's what matters. That's how like smart money like makes money. By developed like Renaissance Technologies, Jim Simons, they had a lot of positive 95s, negative 95s, and they just automated options trading systems around that. The RSI 14 has a 0% correlation. It's literally meaningless. Yet professionals on CNBC every day, and just people of Twitter who live on a different planet, they talk about this stuff as if it like matters, and then they like draw a triangle. And I'll wrap with this. Tesla in 2019, which is where I like cut my teeth options trading, by about November or December of 2019, and this was like right before COVID, it was already like maxed out, like hammering up on the RSI, like at like the max, and it was like hanging there. This whole RSI theory would suggest that like the stock was like overbought. It's going to cool off, or it's due for a pullback, or any of these other stupid words that people say. You know what happened from that point? The stock went up by like a factor of 25 or 30 or something like that. It just kept slamming higher. And all these idiots on CNBC had no idea what they were talking about. Not the slightest clue. Let me pause there.
No, it's beautiful. You rip it as much as you want. But I want to add to the things you say that drive market. Also, I think what do we call it? brain activity analysis, people being able to see when there is an asymmetric bet, that when there is something that has combined an outsized potential with less risk than what the market think. And to me, Bitcoin has been exactly that since when I kind of came across it, that it very quickly became, well, this is the safe place to have my money compared to if I had it somewhere else. Like, this is not, you're not running a risk on Bitcoin, like taking anything out of Bitcoin and putting in something else. Now you have to justify the risk. Like, Bitcoin to me is safe haven, right? And MicroStrategy, I want to just add, is like safe haven. And on top of that, both of them do have insane growth potential in terms of, you can be a normal person right now, like you could work at a cash register and you buy 3 MicroStrategy stock a month or a quarter or something, and it can make a substantial difference for you the day that you retire. Just real quick, I put here the X accounts on the screen. The first 3 on mine, it's my X account, and then events by Anders for when I do pleb parties, 2_Christians for my Christian content. And then what I wanted to get to, we early on had Punter, Jeff, and Ryquant we have right here is Ryan, and then Ben, we also had Ben Workman and Andy Estrom. Just if people want to follow those smart gentlemen on X.
Can I hop in on that point specifically?
Please.
To be honest with you, and I'll talk as if there's nobody in the followers, it's just me and you. I think our best attribute that we have as a collective group is like we don't sell anything. Like, nobody has like a subscription thing, and like we don't, like, we kind of talk about this because I'm like, yo, I think this is like a good look for us as a group and also as investors specifically. And this stuff happened all the time on the Tesla side. Like I said, that was like my introduction to markets. I was anonymous on Twitter back then. I had nothing to say. I just wanted to like learn. And what I quickly realized was that like everyone was monetizing their audience on the Tesla side. Everyone, as they could, was like pumping their YouTube for like engagement and stuff. Like, I don't even care. I don't even know who runs the MSTR True North Twitter. It might be Jeff, it might be Mason. I don't even care. Because as an investor, the common like principle is that you should be making all of your money in the market. And it's such a bad, like, to me, I'm not forcing this idea on anyone. There's great people out there. God bless them. But for me, it's just such a massive red flag when there's like any subscription service or premium Discord or follow my trades here, blah, 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 all this stuff, even down to something like having an advertisement. Because you listed off the Twitter handles. It's like, we don't even run ads on any of this stuff. Like me, you, this right now, no ads. We don't do ads on, we never did ads on Quant Bros. We're not doing ads on True North as long as I'm alive. And guess who also followed that same philosophy, which I had arrived at like before I was even introduced to this character? Roaring Kitty. All of his live streams, it was just him. And he wouldn't just talk about GameStop either. He'd be like, look at this like gold setup, or he'd be like, look at this, you know, oil company, or like he was just going like all the interest rates. He talked about all these things, right? He landed on a big winner, of course, obviously, but like it was just all free. It was he was just enjoying doing it. He'd go on a live stream, he'd look at the chat, and like back in the day, it was like a chat that's like this, right, where you can actually like see things. Versus, I love Care Bear so much. She is just like one of my absolute favorites. But versus something like when Roaring Kitty came back, which was weird. I never understood this. When he came back in like the summer of this year and he did that live stream and he totally hijacked like all of CNBC, Bloomberg. They were just showing live like Roaring Kitty on TV. He hijacked everything. And if you remember that live stream, it was like boom, 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 boom. It was just, you couldn't read anything. You know,
Right.
Something like this is cool. We can talk to people. They can ask questions. We can now like get to the questions. But I just want to throw that out there of like our shtick is like we're not selling anything. We're willing to be wrong. All that stuff.
Yeah, so the only thing I have, I guess, sold is tickets for my pleb parties, which there's not a lot of money in, and I'm not
Right.
even sure if I'm gonna do another one. Because it's like 4 or 5 months of anxiety and stressing, like you want to make 1,000 people happy. So it's like a little bit of pressure, right? But just want to say congrats to Phil K, who became a millionaire today. That's awesome. Let's give it fireworks for that one. Yeah, congrats, Phil. That's awesome, man. Happy for you. Where's that one? There. So yeah, I do have at some stage I do have to run as well. I gotta, but I have a question for you, Ryan. I have a question for you. The next 2 Mondays, I will be in a very different time zone. Now, granted, I have seen today how you're on the beach when the market opens on a Monday, sipping beers and eating tacos. But my question is, because I know for Jeff and Ben in regular full-time jobs that during the day is impossible. But are you open to do something early morning, like around market open next Monday? Because that would fit with my time zone. And if you can't, then it's all good. I'm just asking, like, if early in the day at any or earlier, it could also be after the market has opened, and you've done all your trades and stuff, that before lunch, sometime before 11 a.m., if you would be down for MicroStrategy Monday, and we could do more of this, or you're going to be busy with the market.
And no, and just to clarify, because since it came up, I like never trade. I almost never log into my brokerage accounts. Like I know I see what it's doing. I know in the back of my head what the numbers are. It doesn't matter. My logistical issue would be I'm actually flying next week to an undisclosed location to film a podcast in person. We're talking multiple people, black suits, orange ties, the whole thing. So yeah, I'm gonna be on the road a little bit. The next couple of weeks are tough, but I will get back to you via text on this stuff. But it's fucking crazy. Like the amount of people, like my messages on every platform, texting, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, phone calls, like maxed out. So I know, and I don't think this is the mania yet. These people think it's the mania now. I don't think it's the mania. You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, mania. No. Oh no, it's this is the early innings. This is the first innings of like the foundation of potentially at some stage mania. This is still only a small group of people being pretty euphoric about MSCR going up, I don't know what, 30% or something, and the leverage products even more so. I was seeing Løfebassen in the chat, thinking that sounds extraordinarily Danish. I'm from Denmark, right? And Ryan, we have a thing in Denmark that we try and make foreigners say, which is really, it's really hard to say it without an accent. But I can say it once, and then please, for the chat, for the audience, if you can try and repeat after me. Rødgrød med fløde. It's right here. It's not hard. Come on, Ryan. You can do it. I'll do one more time. Let me first explain to you what it is. And my grandmother used to make this. Rødgrød, okay? It's a dessert, red sort of kind of not pudding, not like it's what's the right word? Kind of pudding, porridge, something like it was at a very affordable dessert from, everyone being able to have this. My grandmother used to make it. Then med fløde means with cream, so you pour cream on it as well. So you have this porridge, and then so we'll try. I'll say one more time, and you give it your best shot, Ryan. Rødgrød med fløde.
Okay, here's the thing I'm going to say first is that look at me in the camera. I'm an uncultured swine. I know a few things, nothing impressive about other countries, other cultures, accents. I speak 0 other languages other than English. I would disrespect you, your family, your country, this gentleman, Lufa Bass, if I even tried. I would be the biggest sign of disrespect. I can't do that to you.
No, but here's the thing, Ryan. We know there would be no disrespect, but we would get to laugh. That's why we try to make foreigners say that. But okay, what I'll say is like, how about this? I'm going to offer you an out here, Ryan. I'm going to offer you an out. Okay. Okay, you get off from saying rødgrød med fløde today, but if Lufferbassen come back on another MicroStrategy Mondays and he posts this in the chat, are you going to give it a shot? Can we do something?
I will. I would agree to that right now. Done
deal. Excellent. But on that note, just humor me again next Monday, anytime during the day, possible or not possible for you, or you're just not sure whether you can go next Monday?
I think it's all open. I have no plans that day. It just won't be here, so I can't like. If I'm at my own place, I can tell you like 100%. But I am open that day. I just don't know like logistically which house I'll be in. But yeah, I can do that.
Just give me a time that will work from you, wherever hotel you are, some other part of the world, and you give me a time, and we'll lock it in. And if you have half an hour, whatever, just what do you have an idea of what time you would be able to do that during the day next Monday?
I'd say let's do this. Let's aim for the same time, because I'm also going to try and make the MST, like the True North internal call afterwards. So let's try for the same time with the option of, and who loves optionality more than me? Nobody. My Donald Trump. We love optionality, folks. We love it.
We love it. It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge. We have the option of going earlier, because I'll be somewhere, but I can take the call even on a phone or a laptop or,
Yeah. So this is not a laptop. This is the big gaming computer setup you have in your bedroom with the 4 or 5 monitors.
So depressing that way.
Huh?
Yeah, I lived my whole life in a small box. Yes, that is true.
Consumer 1982. Why don't you all buy? We all buy MC. It's a leveraged product with a lot of dangers and risks involved, and it definitely comes at risk of losing all capital. Personally, I have a little bit, and I'll say, but only during this phase of the cycle. By October next year, I'll be all out of it, because you don't want to hold a leveraged ETF when the market starts turning around, like for real. We can have pullbacks. It'll survive pullbacks. You don't want to own a leveraged ETF in an actual bear market. You're going to lose 98% of your value.
The chance of being wrecked there is massive. And for me, I want to be like a large shareholder of this company. And just to show people how like long-term my thinking is, I'm trying to work there in like 10 years. I got a lot going on like in between now and then with like, you know, the private company stuff, blah, 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 doing the MicroStrategy playbook there. But like, I want to be an employee of that company 10 years from now. So like, I want to own a lot of the main thing. But that's that again, investing is a personal sport. Research is a team activity, and that's a Ben Workman quote for everyone. I love that one. So this is like that's the reason I wouldn't do it. Plus, I mean, I think the leverage thing, I think you're spot on, right? Like the underlying stock, it went up today 25-30%, something like that. I've lived through, as a shareholder, negative 22% days. So if we do the math on the downside, you can get cut in half overnight. Overnight.
Oh, yeah.
So like I live with that risk in this small little bit that I own. Again, it's going out the door October, November, December next year. Same thing with my options, but like I'm willing to own those exposures regardless of the volatility now.
Yeah.
Come October, November, December next year, I'll have no leverage. I'll be borrowing zero money. I might have some options left, like my 2027s, maybe. Again, no leverage. That's the big thing. MSTU will be out the door. Again, we'll talk more about this, of course, but we're just like future things. But October, November, December 2025, like all that stuff is going to be like coming off the leverage. And then I'm going to either like delete my account or like disappear one way or another.
Yeah, but I think that's a good point. Like we're you know, we are doing these shows every Monday. You guys are doing MicroStrategy North now both Monday, starting in 34 minutes, and Wednesday. Happy to give props to you guys. Looking forward to watching myself. Great discussions there. What was the point that I wanted to make? Yeah, but so as we're doing regular content talking about MicroStrategy, I think it's a relevant discussion for ourselves. A lot of this discussion is like for us to get, you know, pick each other's brain, but also then people know when do you start closing your leverage positions and just do MSGR. And again, if you don't want to have any worries at all, why not just do MSGR? And don't forget Bitcoin and cold storage, of course. And I see why you want to buy those, a lot of shares, Ryan, because you want to sit 10 years from now at that job interview at MicroStrategy, and they're like, yeah, Ryan, like there's 3 people left. We're not really sure if, and you'll be like, yeah, but I'm voting for it with my stock. Let's just put it up for the road. I have so many MicroStrategy shares now that I'm just going to vote myself into the job, right? Because you'll hold the shares, right? You see what I'm saying?
It's not like a hostile takeover. I want it to be like a bonus. Like, look, I've pounded the table on this thing in a non-financial advice sense. I just shared research for free. I'm going to go do other projects. But like, yeah, if timing and destiny line up, like, yeah, I want to do that. And I'm holding this thing forever, never selling it. Not many corporate executives can say that they've ever bought their own stock on the open market. Only like Berkshire type executives passed that bill. Not many others, almost none others, because they get paid such a huge salary plus like RSUs, restricted stock units. They get exposure to their company already. You know what I mean? Very few people buy it with their own money and then, you know, never sell it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of conviction to come into a job interview saying, well, I've been accumulating your stock for 11 years now, or 12, or whatever it'll be at that time. So Torb Hodl did have a really good point here. He added, so I've let it be on the screen for a little bit, Ryan, that when I asked you like when you can go Mondays, because I'm gonna be somewhere where I would love it could be like way earlier if that's possible for you next Monday. Which time zone are you gonna? Okay, we'll chat offline.
We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk.
But if you can do it way earlier, that would be super good for me. Otherwise, it'll be
100%.
middle of the night for me. Yeah,
100%.
all good. So Chris here has a good point. We shouldn't. Actually, beer and wine it contains alcohol, but it's not hard liquor alcohol, I guess. But the reason I brought it up, Chris, is because you say I believe it will surpass, but never gloat. I don't think Ryan and I are gloating here. We're happy that that the investments we've made that we've been telling people about for a while, including Bitcoin for many years, are turning out well. So I don't think there's any gloating here. We're just celebrating a little bit that there's been a good day. But Ryan, go ahead. You had your hand up, sir.
Yeah, I would say too with the alcohol point, like, look, I'm not proud that like I consume beverages, you know what I mean? But I also think I'd like to play the Charles Barkley card. If for those who are familiar with basketball, the Hall of Famer Charles Barkley, who once said, look, I'm not a role model. I'm not a role model. And you get a lot of role model types in Bitcoin, like people talking about seed oils, which I believe in that stuff. You get people talking about like religion, and that gets like controversial. You get people trying to talk about like heavy hitting like ideas. That's why I'm clear on like I'm never giving financial advice, and I'm not a role model. I'm just myself. You can watch it. You can also not watch it. I don't condone any of my lifestyles, whether it's leverage in the markets or what. I don't condone any of this stuff for other people. I'm not a role model.
Oh, absolutely. I can only say the same. I've never anything I've said is financial advice. None of this is. This is a couple of guys trying to figure out what is the right thing to do and how things will go, and share that information with others that may or may not find it useful, or as Tor Hodl say, we're just building a cult here. I guess that's all.
That's funny. That is funny though.
Yeah, it is funny. Tor Hodl has been around since I could see on some of the things he was saying. Toxic Happy Hour YouTube, which started more than 4 years ago. Me and Puppy, and one of the first episodes we mentioned that, whoa, there's this company, MicroStrategy. They just bought a lot of Bitcoin. But yeah, it's when you think about it, as I touched upon earlier, there's some very smart, good-looking guys, very employable that were here on the stream earlier, and they are, and just. I guess me and Ryan are less so, and that's why I don't follow this example. But we're just we're not applying for positions at. But I will if it goes south. I'll be applying at McDonald's. Like soon. Let's see what happens. I need this cycle to be like an actual cycle and not like 21. So. Anyways, Ryan, at some point I do have to pull the plug as well. We've been going for 2 hours.
We can do it now. I could run. We can do it now.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say apart from MicroStrategy True North going live in 27 minutes on Jeff's account, and MicroStrategy True North account as well, but. Any final words, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've been talking about this stuff for some time now. The thing I really do want to pound home is like, this was not just me. When I started buying this thing, I was buying it. It's like, oh, it's leveraged Bitcoin. That was the whole thesis. That was it. It's leveraged Bitcoin. What's not to like? The thesis has then since, turned into something much, much, much bigger than that. And it's largely due to the work of other people. Jeff, Ben, Grain of Salt, Josh Mandel, Dylan LeClaire, Adrian Morris, Neethu Senzi, Dan Hillary's a genius person, and nobody understands that. So I like to think I was just early on all of the characters, and they've written the story. So it's really not like a one person type Roaring Kitty type analog where it really was just one person then. Now there's a network effect of some of the smartest people. And look, I'm one of the biggest critics out there. I'll disrespect CNBC. I'll disrespect like JP Morgan. I have no problem like challenging like the authorities. These people are just brilliant. Like the whole crew. I feel like I've added nothing. It's just I was just early to them. I feel like I was just, but that's my point though. I feel like I was just early to them, and then they figured it out.
Ryan, I can tell you that all of us that are tracking and interested in MicroStrategy, like, enjoy your thoughts a lot. Not only the pure wisdom and the great takes, but also the entertainment, man. You're a fun guy to do a show with, for sure. And it was good to, you know, finally meet you in person in Santa Monica. Now we'll do that again. We're not far from each other, so we'll figure something out. And let me know if you come up to LA. Why don't I just leave it right here with this message from MicroStrategy Voyager? I'm going to follow your example of throwing my bottle caps in the corner. If you can hit it at the same spot, it means you got it locked down. So on that note, if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe if you like it, and share it with a friend, you know, and help them understand a little bit about how to open bottle caps and potentially hear about MicroStrategy, how to make them fly. It's very easy. I'll do more of that. And also, yeah, I think that's it. Every Monday, except the next couple of Mondays will likely be different, but otherwise every Monday, MicroStrategy Mondays, I have these super quants like Ryan here and Jeff and Ben adding sharing great insights whenever they have the ability and the time. And otherwise, yeah, I guess that's it.
That's it.
So that's it.